welcome back to another episode of Hellman's Kitchen Veteran Foodie Podcast. I got another extra special guest on, not just because she's a Coast Guard veteran, but because she's super cool. Trisha Scarrett, who runs Garden to Guts. Welcome, Trisha. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Of course. We were just talking. You're my third Coast Guard vet on the show, which is cool. And I've only had 8 episodes, so you can tell I'm a little biased towards Coast Guard vets, I guess.
Should be.
Rightfully so. Rightfully so. But yeah, so cool. I'm super happy you were able to join up. And you're out in Virginia now, right? You
I
said.
am. I'm in the Hampton Roads area.
Okay, cool, awesome. And I know we were talking last week. You were saying you were looking maybe to move back to Florida at some point. You're thinking.
St. Petersburg, that was my favorite station, so I would love to get back there.
That's awesome. That's super cool. I love St. Pete. I grew up in like Clearwater, um, basically like Clearwater, Dunedin, Palm Harbor.
Okay.
If you're
Yeah,
familiar. Yeah, it's cool down there. It's like a nice way of life. Everybody's like
it is
really super
chill.
nice.
Very chill.
Yeah, exactly. I was stationed out in like Alameda, California for a few years, and we used to go to San Diego a lot. And I thought San Diego was like a different version of Florida.
Uh,
They're like so similar. Yeah, it's interesting, but that's cool. So sorry, you were in the Coast Guard. So what'd you do in the Coast Guard? You were in OS, right?
I did search and rescue.
Cool. That's awesome. So what is an OS to anybody who doesn't know the acronym?
And OS is an operational specialist. There's two types. You have the ones on sea and you have the ones on land, which mainly deal with search and rescue, flight operations, boat operations, and then you have the one that's on sea. They also do search and rescue and drug bust, but mainly navigation. So,
Cool. I know. So I was on ships my whole time in the Coast Guard, and we had an OS who basically saved us from like running aground at some point. So I got a special place in it for OSs. I was like up front in the bow of the ship too, sleeping below the waterline, so
oh
I would have been
wow,
like fucked. So I like OSs. You're good in my book,
yeah,
but that's cool though. So favorite unit was St. Pete. So that must have been a super busy station, right?
it
Was
was.
it a sector?
That was a sector, yes,
Sector? Okay. That's busy, right? So you guys are handling what? The people on the water out there, like all the small boats and stuff and craziness going on, or tell me a
absolutely,
little bit about that.
as well as the planes for the air station because air station Clearwater is like not too far down the street. All the cutters that go in and out, and then whatever events that take place outside of Coast Guard activities within the bay.
Oh yeah. I could only imagine that's gonna be nuts. One of my close buddies, probably the reason why I joined the Coast Guard, my good buddy Trevor was stationed in what was that? Station San Key, Clearwater,
Okay.
small boat station. And he used to tell me how busy it was out there, and I could only imagine so many boaters and accidents and everything in between. That's cool though. Interesting. Cool. So how's the food at the sector?
Uh, I cooked a lot while I was there.
Did you?
I'm guessing it was okay. I don't think I ever ate at the sector while I was there.
No.
We either bought food because we had like a like a Uber book full of restaurants in the area, and
Oh yeah.
we could rarely leave the sector because OS is once you're on shift, you can't really go anywhere because you're like in a locked up vault. So we used to have a lot of deliveries, so you brought your own food, but we never really got to go to the cafeteria.
Okay, fair enough. Wonder. I bet too. I think sectors are usually run by civilians. I want to say for the food, but I'm not 100% sure.
I
Curious.
wouldn't know.
Yeah, I wonder. But that's neat though. Cool. All right. So garden to guts. Super interested in that because I like aspire to have a garden of my own. I live in Brooklyn right now, New
Okay.
York City. So we tried to grow like a basil plant out back, and it got torn up by like rats, basically, which
Oh
is super
wow.
gross. So we don't grow anything back here. I'm moving upstate eventually, and
Okay.
we got like a big garden up there. So I'm super excited for that. But tell me about how you got started. So it's an interesting concept.
So Garden to Guts was started back in 2018, right before COVID came in. I'm a travel nurse by trade, so I've been doing travel nursing for years. And then when COVID hit, I had to pretty much homeschool my children. And it wasn't like your regular homeschool where you're a part of a system. This was like just straight homeschooling where everything is on me, all the activities, the field trips is on me. So one of the activities that we had for science was gardening. And my daughter, who is the face of my logo, she was the main one in the garden, helping me plant. And I also was picking up little contract jobs at the time. And I wasn't really fond of the medications that they were giving out during COVID. So I used to tell my patients, hey, instead of taking this, go home and, cut up some garlic, mix it with honey, because I'm from the islands, I'm from St. Thomas. So a lot of my remedies are natural. So they would find me on Facebook or they would find me on social media and they'll be like, hey, it worked. Or, how can I buy this from you? And I'm like, no, you can get this from your local grocery store. So when I noticed that it was working, me and my daughter, that was like one of the main things that we grow in the garden is garlic every year. And we make sure we take up like 2 bins just specifically for garlic and natural herbs. Um, and then the stuff that we were growing, like eggplants and squash, are normal things that a lot of people don't usually cook with. So we would find recipes that people don't usually think they can make with these things. And I just started posting them on social media, like, hey, this is what we made. And then people started ordering it. And I'm like, no, this is just stuff that we have in the garden. So it became a meal prep thing where people actually wanted to buy these meals from us because they didn't trust themselves to cook it. And now we're just a big meal prep corporation.
I love that. I love how it stemmed out of healing yourself without medication. I'm a big believer in that as
Correct.
well. One of my recent guests on here, Navy vet Alton Weeks, runs Health Food Organics, who basically started something similar. So he was getting medicated for different reasons, and he started making different
The
juices to heal
juices, I
himself.
saw that.
Yeah, yeah. So he's like, oh yeah, my doctor was like, what the hell are you doing? Like, all your points are going better in the right direction. Keep doing whatever you're doing. So I love that. That's a big. So a lot of my food on my show is plant based. Stemmed out of my
Good.
mom, her bout with breast cancer a few years ago, and she was like, Steve, I gotta figure out like a good anti-inflammation diet. Trying this plant-based thing, I need you to help me think of good recipes. You're a cook, like figure it out.
Right.
And that's what got me interested back in cooking again, and basically stemmed Hellman's Kitchen from all that. So
Wow.
kind of similar in that regards. And I'm also Italian American, so I love garlic. So I'm probably healthy on that side. I eat a lot of garlic,
Yeah.
probably too much. My wife's always like, "Oh man, I'm gonna have heartburn again," but she loves how it tastes, so it's okay. That's cool though. That's so interesting. So how long have you been a travel nurse for? Sorry, what'd you say? A few years now?
Whew. I have been in the medical field for 17 years. I started out as a travel CNA in high school. So, and
Cool.
then I just worked my way up. So I've been doing traveling for 17 years just about.
No kidding. Wow, no shit. So how was it during the whole COVID fiasco? Was it just craziness or what? Like you working nonstop?
It was very busy. Um, I took a lot of contracts that a lot of people didn't want to take. So of course
Cool.
the pay was very high and the money was very good. Um, I bought a lot of things. I paid off a lot of things, but it was very busy. I don't think I would want to go through that again.
Oh yeah. Jeez, I can imagine. Well, hell, thanks
Yeah.
for that service. That's wild. That's awesome though. No kidding. Cool. So I guess past that. So garden to gut. So you mentioned you use a lot of your family's garden. I guess what was the garden before garden to guts? Was it small or was it as big or how'd that all work out for you?
There wasn't a garden at all. I didn't do any gardening. I used to go to Whole Food stores and, just buy the organic
Hmm.
fruits and vegetables. But once I realized that I was home a lot with the kids and they needed something to do, I'm like, oh, well, I could do this myself. I mean, it just takes a lot of patience, but it's more beneficial because I ended up saving money. And then a lot of the things that I grow, I freeze and I use it throughout the winter time. So it's very convenient for me to grow my own food. And now we ended up moving to a bigger piece of land because the garden ended up getting, too big for the house that I was at. And now that's all we do is garden full time.
Wow, that's amazing. So how'd you learn to garden? You just Google or?
No, my grandmother, so my family is from St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, and on my grandmother's compound, she has, I've always known there to be banana trees, soursop trees, onions, anything, mango trees, anything she could plant, it grew in her yard. So I grew up naturally just around fresh fruits and picking them every day.
Wow, that sounds amazing. It just sounds healthy. Just saying it out loud. That's cool. So that makes a lot of sense. Interesting. So what's one of like the easier produces to start growing if you had to suggest somebody starting a garden up?
Garlic and potatoes, those are like the two easiest things to grow. One, because you just take like the head of garlic, you separate it into the six pieces, you stick it in the ground, and you don't do nothing else with it. You literally just come back in 7 to 9 months and you have a full head of garlic. And then potatoes, once you see them sprouting the little roots at the end after people then left them in their pantry for weeks at a time, you literally just throw them in the dirt and you leave them and you don't come back again for like another 6 months and you have a ground full of potatoes. So those are like the two easiest things you can grow without doing anything.
Interesting. I didn't realize about that garlic. That's pretty interesting too. We were talking last week about too how much fresher produce tastes from a fresh garden
Yeah,
compared to like these grocery stores. I mean, it's such a big difference. You can almost grow it for like flavor instead of like growing it big like the grocery stores do or whatever.
correct.
Like especially for some reason, especially in New York City, for some reason, avocados they're like $5 a pop given two, which is awful,
Oh, wow.
but they deflate after like a day, and like
Because
it's
a
hard
lot of
to
it
find
is
avocados.
steroids, and the people don't realize that. Because I did a comparison, like with the things that I grew, my cucumbers and stuff, and then I put it next to a store bought cucumber, and the size difference is like, what are they putting in these things?
Yeah, it's not natural. Yeah, that's for sure. That reminds me of we were pulling into I think it was like El Salvador or some weird port call. Like we couldn't get off, but we had to get stores from there.
Uh-huh.
And we got these we called them Chernobyl chickens because they were like probably bigger than my head, like just the chicken breast itself. And like it's kind of gross, you know?
Oh,
Like
wow.
this doesn't seem natural, you know? That's on the meat side of things, but that's interesting too. That's cool. So what's your favorite produce to grow?
My favorite would be peppers. Um, my husband, he's the one that started growing peppers when we started the whole garden thing. He's from Trinidad. So the first pepper that he grew was the Trinidad scorpion, which is like a very hot pepper. And he grew two big trees and they just overproduced. And I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do with these ridiculously hot peppers? Because it's not something that you could put in food every day because it's so spicy. But when I started researching peppers and I learned that you could take the capsaicin from peppers and make ointment or make stuff for knee pain and back pain, it's like, okay, I kind of like peppers now. So that's something that I have to grow every year.
Oh, that's cool. Interesting. Are they like the little peppers or are they big ones?
The little hot peppers, they're like the size of
Okay,
jalapenos, scotch bonnets, any hot pepper. We,
gotcha.
yeah, we grow.
Okay, nice. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So I guess so. How does garden to guts work? So you grow the produce in your backyard. You pick the produce every so often. You put it into the meal preps. How's that process work A to Z? I'm so curious by it all.
So some of the produce that I grow, I'm able to freeze and use throughout the year.
Hmm.
Some of the other ones, like eggplants, stuff that are fresh, I use them on a weekly basis. So when people order meal preps, they'll say, "Hey, what's coming out the garden this week?" Or "What can I order this week?" And I'd be like, "Okay, well, this is what we have picking. You can use this as a starch. You can use this as your veggie." And I just make meal preps out of them.
Huh, that's cool. So it's like I guess people are eating with the season to some extent,
Correct.
which I've always heard and read a bunch that it's super healthy to do. But also,
It
that does
is.
sound interesting. That's pretty cool. So what's the favorite meal prep? What's the best seller? Or I guess what's your favorite one to make, and what's the best seller?
The best selling is string beans. People are hooked
Nice.
on string beans. My favorite would probably be eggplant French fries. because
Ooh.
I didn't know I could make French fries out of eggplants until like I started this whole garden thing. And I used to overproduce in eggplants and I didn't know what to do with them until I started Googling, oh, you can make French fries out of them. And my kids love them. So that would be my favorite, but string beans seem to be everybody else's favorite.
Oh man, I might have to try some eggplant French fries. I've never had that. That's a great idea. Mm. That's an easy way to sneak some vegetables into your kids' diets too.
It is. And they taste just like French fries. Like I was
Oh,
blown away.
oh, that's interesting. I have to try that. That sounds fun. I'm always thinking about different things to do with eggplant because it's such like a spongy
Correct.
produce, you know. So that's cool. So I guess were there any meal preps you started and like didn't get good feedback, or you were like, that's not, and you discontinued? Any stick out?
Surprisingly, no.
That's
It's
good.
always like a surprise with me. People will contact me and say, "Hey, can you try this?" And I'll be like, "Well, I've never cooked that before." And they'll be like, "Okay, it's okay. I trust you." And I'm like, "Okay." So I'll try it, and then I'll get great feedback, and I'm like, "Whew." I'm just going on prayer at this point. So I haven't had any bad review, thank goodness.
Cool.
So
That's good. That's good to hear. It all looks amazing. I was scrolling on your Instagram, Garden to Guts, and all the food was making me like hungry. I was watching it earlier today too, and I was like, oh man, I'm pretty hungry. That looks good.
I think my
That's
family has been through all my mistakes because when I didn't know how to cook before. So when I
okay.
first got married and I was learning how to cook, it's like there's plenty of times they sat around the table and they just ate it, even though I know it was probably nasty, and they just suck it up and they ate it. And then as I got better, they'll be like, okay, well, add this next time or take this out. So they were my test dummies, and that's how I got to where I am.
That's good. That's a good way to test on the family first. That's the best way to do it. That's funny. I know. I just grilled out last night a couple different things, and like they didn't come out as good as I thought. But it was just me and my wife eating. I'm like, that's okay.
It's
She's not eating. It could be worse. No, that's pretty funny. That's such an interesting founding story, though. A lot of these guests I've been talking to on the show and outside too, just in the military connected entrepreneurship circles, basically. It seems like they start honing in on something they really enjoy. They figure out, oh, other people enjoy it too, and then they start figuring out how to make money and
right,
make a business out of it. And it seems like all the connection comes from their a lot of their military experience taps into that, right? Being adaptable, the time management, the leadership skills,
right.
all that. What do you think has helped you out from the Coast Guard experience?
Being disciplined, I think, has helped me with my military background because I still get up at a certain time every morning. I still get up way early. Um, I hit the ground running, working as soon as I get up. I have to put my hands to something and just being on a schedule. Like every day, I make a plan. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I have to do. This is what I have to accomplish. And I think that's kind of like how they had me in the military because every day I had something to do. So that's kind of what I took away from it.
Yeah, that was a great point. And I've talked about this in length with. I used to work in higher education for a few years at Fordham University over in New York City with the student veteran population.
Okay.
And a big thing seeing vets get out from like the other side of the seat, after I've like chilled out and like been a civilian for a while, they're always looking to do like 10 things compared to one or two
Right.
things at a time. And sometimes that can burn you out, but it's also like part of our greatest assets, I think, in our community. It's like
Absolutely.
just keep going and getting that structure. And yeah, I know when I don't have structure myself, I like kind of float aimlessly and I don't do as well, right? With
Right.
everything. So that's interesting you said that. It's cool. So I guess so for our military connected entrepreneurs listening in, or non-military connected entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, what advice do you got for them? What life lessons have you learned? What mistakes have you made? Losses, big wins, whatever.
I would say don't let fear hold you back. I think fear held me back a lot. Being that I started in 2018 and my business is just now taking off, a lot of that is because of me, like nobody else. I didn't think my food was good enough. I didn't think people wanted to eat healthy. I didn't think, you can make healthy food taste as good as I make it taste. So a lot of it was restrictions on my own and once you learn that you have no restrictions, like my husband always tells me, you have no restrictions. Like you can do whatever you want to do. And if it fails, it's not really a failure, it's just a learning curve. So you have to make everything a positive, even the negative. So don't let fear hold you back.
Ah, that's great advice. I love that. And 110% agree. Failure is it's a good thing. Every business needs to fail at some parts, right? To learn from.
Right.
That makes perfect sense. So, all right. So after that, so how do we support your business? How am I ordering meal preps from you? What are people looking for? What's your website? Give us all the details.
So my website is www.gardentaguts.com. We are on all social media platforms, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Garden to Guts, and you can order meal preps on the website as well. And we usually respond with less than 24 hours.
Great. That's perfect, Trisha. Well, you're an inspiring story. I hope people tuning in are eating healthier and starting to grow veggies, or if not, eating a ton of garlic. But you know, we'll see. But appreciate having you on the show, Trisha. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and your business.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine.
All right. Care.